When you're flying in thermals and turbulent air, it's always good to fly a safe glider at 100% than a quite high performance one at 60%. Now, the harness plays a really crucial part to the stability and handling of a wing. 42 centimeters is that, from my elbow to my fingers. 42 is the harness setting all gliders are tested with. So, when you have a deflation, I'll just do one now, have a deflation, lean into it, recovers 90 degrees, okay? That's at 42 centimeters of separation. I'm going to loosen us right off and make the harness really wide, which means there's going to be big movement of weight when it deflates. Same deflation, same leaning in as before, and it goes to 180 degrees. There's no point flying a safe glider with a dangerous harness setting like that, because it changes the characteristics. Having a wide spacing is good if you want to feel the glider, but not good if you want more security. So it's your choice, but you've got to make a good calculated one.
Alternatively, close mailons can encourage your risers to twist more and can lock you into a spiral dive. In addition, it can desensitize your feeling of the wing, which can delay your response time to turbulence and deflations.
Okay, as the design of paragliders have evolved, we've got gliders that now fly at a really beautiful glide rate, very flat. But one vice they do have is that when you do a symmetric tuck, they hover a little bit before they dive. Now you've got to let the glider hover and then dive, because if you don't, if you break it whilst it's still hovering, you'll go into a stall. Okay, I'll do a symmetric collapse, so front riser, bang! There, hover, gently dive, okay? So whilst it's still quiet, resist that temptation to break it. Always remember, if it's quiet, keep your hands up. When it's noisy, you can start squeezing on the brakes.
Here is a good example of the glider hovering back in a semi-deep stall. It is important to give it time, keep your hands up and trust the glider, and allow it to then spontaneously recover itself, braking the dive if you need to. Too much brake at the wrong time will cause the glider to start to drop back into a stall. If you let go now, then the dive will be more violent, leading to a huge symmetric tuck, or worse, you falling into the wing. So you must brake the dive if it's a big surge. Similarly, with an asymmetric tuck, it is important not to overreact. Too much input when the glider has not started to turn into the tuck can cause the glider to spin.
If your glider goes into really bad spin, the important thing is, if you can see the ground, then you can release the brakes. I'll just do a full spin. Okay, round I go. And when I see the ground there, I just release the brakes. It'll continue around in a spin, pull straight out. Now, that's all because I released the glider when it was in front of me. If I were to release the glider when it was behind, then it would be a different story. Big dive, big collapse, change of direction, twist. So the secret is just not to overreact. Don't fight the brakes, just provide resistance and keep it smooth. So I'm just going to go into a spin and I'll release it when it's in front of me. So barry it down, round I go, it's in front of me. So release the brakes. Whoop, bit of a dive on that one. Check the dive. That's a chummier one.
It's also good to know your glider's point of spin so that it keeps you safe in strong thermals and maximises your performance in cores. Watch Russell demonstrate.
Now, to find the point of spin when you're flying and you're thermaling, you can just push the brake hard like that, and then as soon as it starts to rotate, that's when you put your hand up again and you continue your circle. And if you know that point of spin, that's the point of spin in strong thermic conditions that you can avoid going too close to. But you do need to find that limit so that you can turn nice and tightly in the thermals.
Okay, another thing that's happened when a glider is rotating to one side, you very quickly have a twist. Twisting isn't good. You should always try to prevent the twist, because when it twists once, that's it. If the glider isn't recovering in the first 360 or so, then it'll just continue going round. To avoid twists, one, sit up so that your body's in between the risers and you're moving with the risers as the glider moves. And if you see a twist, then block it. Block it with your arms, get yourself back quick. And that holds you solid with the glider, moves you with the glider, and also stops any more twists coming in. So if you see a twist, oh, I've done a stall, I'm twisting, grab it, pull it apart, settle yourself down, and then get on the controls and fly away. Now, to kick out a twist is very easy. I'll just do a few twists, block that like that. My arms become my risers. Once I've stopped the twists, the glider's back to normal, then I'll start kicking it out. To kick it out, you just do big scissor kicks and untwist yourself. Once it goes round, you see how quickly it goes the minute it's allowed to be freed. In a moment, you're going to see some of the Ozone boys doing some amazing acro moves. But before you even consider doing acro, you have to be able to recover from it if it goes wrong.
For example, the stall is used a lot to recover from a spin or a sat that goes badly wrong. It's a manoeuvre you should be able to perform with complete confidence. So when I switch to a new glider, I'll stall it to build up my confidence in the wing and also my ability to recover it. The full stall can be disconcerting because there is a period of perceived weightlessness during which the pilot falls backwards. Watch how Jerome's upper body goes from vertical to past the horizontal as the wing goes into full stall. It's important to keep your head straight, your piloting active. The wing will thrash around, so keep your arms engaged and don't let the forces snatch the controls away from you. Done correctly, you can lose as little as 40 metres from start to finish and have a descent rate of only 6 metres per second. The wing may also turn, as it does here in the example. But don't worry about this. It should not affect your smooth release and control of the dive.
Now, to stall, it's very easy. All you do is make sure you're sitting upright as much as you can, and you're nice and tight in your harness, and you bury the brakes and stall it. When it becomes above your head, you then ease the brakes off, check that dive as it comes, and fly away. So I just demonstrate. Bury the brakes, back I go. Above me, just gently ease off and fly as normal, and it recovers. Now, if it gets a little cravat in, or a little tip cravat like that, all you do is go to the stabilizer line, give it a little tug, okay? So it's nice to check you know where the stabilizer line is, because it's not always on the front. It's often on the B riser going to the tip. Sometimes a different colour, but it's good to check, okay? One tug on the stabilizer line gets a cravat out.
Have a look at this sat that went wrong. Too much brake induced a spin. The pilot stalls his way out, but you can see the right wingtip has a small cravat, which could lead to a spiral. So all he does is tug on the stabilizer line and it pops out.
So unless you're prepared to be able to stall a wing, don't start thinking about doing acro.
Here, Russell demonstrates a great stall recovery from a helicopter that went wrong.
Keep our legs tucked in, keep it going round. As soon as it goes off there, I stop by stalling, hold the glider in a stall, let it stabilise and fly away. Don't be indecisive, okay? When you decided to stall it, you're going to stall it. But once you've locked your arms on and you fall back, the glider reappears, then begin the easing up of the process and check that dive as it comes. So you just bury the brakes like that, it goes back, comes above my head, and I start easing the brakes up, let it dive a touch, and fly. Right, well, we're going to sign off from here. You've learned your thermaling, you've learned a bit more about SIV. Now we're going to hand you to the boys in Annecy, who are going to show you some excellent manoeuvres and how to acro properly. I'm going to have a little play at a sat. Whoops. Bend the arm.
The Acro you're about to see is performed by factory pilots with thousands of hours. Always practice Acro over the water with appropriate rescue equipment and under the fully qualified supervision of an experienced instructor. Always practice Acro suitable to your health and level of experience. Now enjoy. Unlike most flying, Acro can put your body through high Gs. Your wing can be flying at 4 times the trim speed in violent bursts. So before you try it, be honest with yourself. Are you one of those few who can make the right inputs in split-second timing and under high pressure? To master it, it takes skill and commitment, and with some people, even that's not enough. I've been flying for years, and you won't catch me doing tumbles. I'm more than happy to leave it to those experts up there.
Hello guys, perfect condition in Annecy. I'm Jerome. I'm working with a test team pilot in a ozone glider. And today we are with Tonio, Antoine Boisselier, Alexis Coudurier, Jimmy Hall, Matt Gerdes, Jocky Sanderson for some maneuvers, some acro maneuvers.
For acrobatic maneuvers, it's necessary to learn step by step. For example, the basic maneuver, wing over, deep stall, pitch, and use completely the brake range when you fly.
Now we start with the sub wing over.
Wingovers are the foundation of all acro moves and are a real art. It's all about timing of weight shift and brake. For me, a real accurate gauge of how skillful a pilot is seeing how well they can do wingovers, elegantly switching sides and keeping the glider inflated and positive throughout. When you're learning, it's a bit like rubbing your stomach and patting your head at the same time. But when you get it, it really does click.
I think the main maneuvers to learn the glider to start will be the wingovers first. I think it's the base, because the pendulum is really important.
I work for wingover with my view. Okay, I start with a wave shift and view to the right, and I brake to the right. I release, I look to the left, wave shift to the left, brake to the left. I release, I have speed, I use the brake. I release, I have speed, I look the weight. I have speed, I use the brake. I have speed, I use the brake, and now I brake the both brakes.
Notice how Jerome pulls a subtle and consistent amount of outside brake simultaneously to the inside brake. His weight shift is noticeable, but not exaggerated. He flies huge, controlled wingovers with precise and well-timed brake input.
For me, the key of a wing over is getting the entry right. Your first wing over is really important. If you cock up the first part, if you make a mess of that, then that messes up the rest of your wing overs. So go for your wing overs, really positive, really confident from the first one. So I'm going to bang it in, let it dive at the ground, and then come the other way. And again, weight shift nice and early, over, and again. That's good. Comme ça.
Use the brakes, opposite brakes, when I feel a lot of weight in my harness. It means a lot of speed, and it's okay to use the brakes. If I feel when my body go up, when I feel less power, I don't use my brake because I miss. There is not enough speed, not enough energy, and it's no good. The risk is collapse.
One of the major breakthroughs that I had in acro flying was probably just nailing wingovers. and I learned them from Rob Whittall a few years ago, and it was a major breakthrough because when you get wingovers to the point where each one is almost as big as a loop, then you've got the weight shift and the transitions nailed, and you understand exactly how much brake you need, and it's a lot more outside brake than most people realize to keep the wing open and to really get them big.
You have to use all the brake flange, in thermals, in piloting, in acrobatic maneuvers, and for me the majority of the pilot use perhaps just 30% of the brake flange.
I think wingovers is the most important part. It's like the backbone of so many tricks, and unless you can really link together wingovers and not just, you know, back and forth, but nice high ones beyond 90 degrees, that's when you're ready to progress and move on to other things like looping or anything else. But until you've got the wingovers down, that's what you should be doing. And they're so fun to do. I mean, you never get tired doing wingovers.
The asymmetric 360 is technically easier than the wingover because you're not changing direction, but like wingovers, it gives you an understanding of weight shift and brake timing. This manoeuvre focuses on speed. Paragliders don't have throttles, so the only way we can increase our speed and give us energy to do loops, etc., is to build up on that dive moment. Imagine in a wingover, at the point where you would switch sides. With an asymmetric 360, this is the point you center your weight, fly straight. During the dive, you reapply the same brake, same weight shift, and accelerate into the turn again. As you go over, you center up again and repeat, perfecting your control. This is a great way of getting used to being above the wing like a loop, but without the associated risks.
Okay, for the 360 asymmetric, I start with wing over, 2 or 3 wing over, and after a wing I go on the same side with asymmetric 360. Okay, I start to the right for the wing over, I release, look, weight shift, brake, I release, look, weight shift, brake, I release, I had to go on the same side, I release, flat in my harness, flat in my harness, flight in my harness, flight in my harness, I go out, I release slowly for a straight fly.
Don't underestimate these maneuvers. It's crucial you practice the wingover and asymmetric 360 until you are completely happy with your control and timing before moving on to more extreme maneuvers like loops.
Now we can see a lot of images of acrobatic, and perhaps a lot of pilots feel it's very easy. No, it's easy because the pilot, you can see there are a lot of practices before. If you go directly looping, it's mistake, it's easy to do, and a mistake in Acro, perhaps it's a catastrophic mistake.
Now you've mastered the timing and control of the asymmetric 360, you can start thinking about looping. To get it right, you need positive weight shift and braking, but above all you need commitment, because with the loop, he who hesitates is lost. It is all about recognizing the point at which you have enough speed to switch all your energy from one direction to another and hold that position all the way over.
Now we go on with a looping. I start with 3 wing over, I go on with 360 asymmetric, and I make an opposite turn, an opposite wing over, it's a looping. For that I need speed. Wing over on the left. Right, wing over to the left. Wing over to the right. I go on the 360. Speed. Okay, yeah. I reverse. I go on to the left. 360. Before looping to the right. Slowly, stable.
It's really important to visualize it even before you can try the maneuver. It's really important to watch other people doing it, to watch videos with other pilots, to see what they feel, how they do it, and just like this you can build the experience.
You can enter loops through wingovers, but it's best to do it from an asymmetric 360 as you have more speed. Looping is great fun, but if you do hesitate during the switch into the loop, or you don't have enough brake or weight shift, then the glider can lose energy and collapse. Fortunately, although it may look bad, you should still have enough energy in the roll around the wing to avoid falling into the sail. But if it does start to collapse or lose energy, you must stop thinking about continuing with another loop and focus on getting the wind back to normal flight. Created by Raul Rodriguez, the SAT is a blend of a spin and a spiral, where the centre of forces are between the glider and the pilot, and the glider starts to spin, yet remains positive through the roll bank. This gives the SAT its unique trademark of the pilot flying backwards and the glider floating in a rotation. Although they look quite floaty, there is a lot of G, especially in the dynamic SAT.
The key to a SAT is your body position when you start the SAT. It's best to have no brake in your left hand so that you hold your risers. You don't need to push your risers for the SAT. The fact that you're holding the riser there is just to lock your arm to keep your weight shift in, because when you enter the SAT, everything wants to throw your weight shift away. If your weight shift gets thrown away from the SAT, then you'll find that you have a very fast rotational spirally type SAT. If you can keep your weight shift in the SAT, that can slow the rotation of the SAT. So that's why we hold our arm like that. We don't need to push the riser to make it actually SAT.
There are many variations of the SAT. The best way to learn is from a progressive SAT entry, where you do a 360, and at the point when the glider drops into the accelerated turn, you apply a lot more inside brake, as if you're trying to spin it but not quite, holding your outside arm on the outer risers to stop yourself from being pushed out of the turn. You see here, Jerome's got his inside brake and weight shift locked on, and the glider's going round in a smooth rotation. Once you're in a SAT, then you'll know because of the feeling of flying backwards. When you want to exit, simply ease up with the initiating brake, centre your weight, and bleed out the energy. Normally, once pilots have perfected the progressive entry, then they usually prefer to enter from a 90-degree turn, as it's much faster.
Now, Jerome showed you how to do the standard entry SAT from a 360. I have another method, and that's just by using the energy and dive, not of a wing over, but just by a jink, the opposite direction. So we just do it from a left-hand turn first. I come off, I hold my risers, now I go right. Once it's facing the ground, now I pull more. And there it is, in the SAT. Now, once you've got it in the SAT, you can control it by using more and more brake on the inside. The more brake you use, the slower the rotation. Obviously, you've got to be careful that you don't spin the glider. If you spin the glider when it's in the SAT, it's called a coconut. Now, to release, I ease off the inside, a little bit of outside, and I come out of my spiral. Nice and smooth. The key to doing nice SATs, I believe, is to be nice and smooth with the entry.
As you improve your technique, you can try more exciting variations, like the dynamic or rhythmic sat, from different styles of entry as well. It is all about what point you initiate the manoeuvre and what you do once you're in it. Jerome is going to demonstrate, but notice his hand and body positions.
You know progressive sat, and you know also 360 asymmetric. We can make the both in the same times. I start with 360 asymmetric, and I go in a sat, and it's a dynamic sat. Okay, I go now in a 360 in the right, asymmetric. I release. Okay. One more. Okay, and now I go in a sat. Yes. It's too violent. I drop the bar. You see, it's more violent. See you.
I just do a dynamic sat from a wing over, and then another asymmetric sat from an offset spiral. See if we can show you the difference. So it's just a left-hand turn, followed by a weight shift, right, get the glider pointing at the ground, and now go again. And there it goes, satting. Come out of that. Okay, so I'm going to turn this to an offset spiral. That's good. Okay, dynamic sat. Play. Water. Good.
With the sat, there are only two things that can really go wrong. Either pulling too much brake and spinning it, or not enough brake and going into a spiral.
Now if I go too strong in my brake, I go in a spin. And I go in a spin. Too much. In a spin, I release. Okay, with a big pitch.
Our next manoeuvre requires a completely different mindset. To master it, you need finesse and great sensitivity. Too heavy-handed, and you'll need to stall it out. The most important thing to master before you do a helicopter is the deep stall or parachutal point. Once you can recognize this point and can hold the glider in for a while, then you can start to initiate a spin, keeping the glider fully inflated and stable in a rotation on its yaw axis. Just watch Antonio as he does a perfect helicopter. Notice his body position and his hands. He's staying perfectly with the glider as it rotates on its yaw axis. Doing a helicopter and keeping it in a stable rotation is a very subtle art, and it's a very fine adjustment on the inside brake. To smoothly exit from the helicopter, simply bring down the outer brake so that it's level with the initiating brake, and then when it's hovering in a deep stall, ease off both brakes and check the dive. Don't hesitate at this point. The glider is very sensitive and yet dynamic.
Okay, the best way for me to do an helicopter, it's first to understand and to know the deep stall stable with not a lot of brakes. Go inside the deep stall and release and keep the deep stall, first thing. After, keep very flat in your harness, flat position. And after, to use the brake in the size what you want, the right for example, and try to do that, to go in the best flat rotation.
Okay, for an helicopter, I keep point. Okay, I have. Okay, it's stable. I have a little pressure in my right brake, and I have very stable in my harness. There is a little unstable. I go out. Big pitch. For the go out, during the helicopter I have a little brake in the right hand and close nothing in the left. To go out, I go in a symmetric position with a little brake and the glider stops the rotation and I have in the deep stall and I go up of the deep stall.
Here we see Jimmy and Jerome doing some lovely examples of helicopters. Notice how the pilots stay underneath the wing and there's very little roll oscillation. What can go wrong? If the glider starts to oscillate off its yaw axis, then it's time to recover it straight away. Because if you hold on the oscillation, then it can get worse. Here's a good example of a helicopter going off the yaw axis and start to oscillate. You can see Jerome recognises this point, starts braking the glider so that it starts to drop back into a stall, then eases off and brakes the dive.
Go to parachutage. There's parachutage, just come off. Now get it rotating, keep my hands off. Okay, now I'm going to stop it, just stall it, hold it in the stall, ease out. Woohoo! Loving the heavy.
Okay, I try another. Okay, very stable. I go out now. The main problem for the exit of helicopter is le regard, the view. If you look the glider, the problem if you lose your reaper, you have to go down your eyes, your view, to see very far away, to have a contact with the ground.
We have shown you the foundation moves of Acro. With much more practice and experience, you may be able to take this further and do thrilling manoeuvres that are even more dynamic and require great skill, like this tumble that Antonio is demonstrating. Antonio holds his position perfectly and keeps the power on all the way over. It takes years to get this far, but only a nanosecond to get it wrong.
Yeah, for me it was not a fantastic tumble at all. It was one of the worst for me, even if it went quite good at the beginning, but then I was kind of out of control because I lose the lucidity, because I should have said, okay, I stop now. And with this kind of maneuver, with this tumble, you have just a very short timing to stop the maneuver safely. Otherwise, you have lots of chance to fall into the glider or in the lines, and that's what happened to me. And I was lucky with the opening and everything, with the rescue. It was all right, but it can be very dangerous.
After throwing both his reserves, Antonio managed to land safely in amongst a family barbecue.
To me, Acro would not be fun if there was no fear. If it didn't give you a rush to do it, if you could go up there and flip over your glider and just ho-hum, fear is just part of the game. You deal with it, and some of us like it. I kind of like scared myself, I guess, or I wouldn't do it.
My favorite maneuver is the tumbling. It's the strongest feeling. Just go above the glider and
On his second flight, Antonio didn't get caught out again. After several perfect tumbles, you can see he notices the glider losing energy, so he slams on the brakes and controls the surge perfectly. After watching this film, please don't think that Acro is a piece of cake. These pilots have great skill and have been practicing for years, and as a result of their dedication, they are fortunate enough to become professional. We are all individuals, and we all have different ways of taking in information, practicing, and then turning it into perfection. So it is important for you to progress through Acro at a pace that is comfortable for you, and only move on to the more extreme manoeuvres when you have mastered each stage and you can genuinely visualize all aspects of the intended maneuvers. But the most important thing with all aspects of flying, whether it's thermaling or acro, is to practice. Dedication and airtime makes you instinctive and gives you reflexes that keep you safe and can turn you into a great pilot. We hope you've enjoyed watching this film, and if it makes one pilot safer and all of you want to go out there and improve your skills, then that is our reward. I think the best thing about paragliding is that it's such a small, close-knit community that even the top guys are approachable. So don't be afraid to ask and learn and make the most out of this great sport. We've distilled 20 years of experience into just 70 minutes, so please use this film as a reference and come back to it from time to time, and you'll be surprised at what you pick up each time you watch it.